Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. So hope everyone's doing good. It's Monday morning at 10:02. So yeah, I had a real fun weekend, pretty chill weekend for the most part. We had a really fun show at Hey Sailor with Quantum, and then I for as far as my band Quantum, I like to give updates, and I do promotion for shows and things like that of that nature through this channel. And again, it's all part of my warped brain, because I feel like films, especially films, obviously it's a movie channel. And again, I want to appreciate. I want to give a big shout out and show of appreciation to all the folks who comment every day on the videos, and I've been getting a pretty decent amount or a good amount of new subscribers as of late, the last couple of weeks. Really appreciate it. And again, it's my favorite thing. The other day or yesterday, somebody had commented on a video that I did about a movie that this person had never heard of before, and they got it on a whim, and they were just blown away by it. And then someone else that I know had commented that they saw my video on a movie, and they, without having seen they had never seen the film before. They went ahead and they ordered it online on Blu-ray, and due to my recommendations, and I really appreciate that. I mean, I don't claim to be when it comes to films, I'm not a scholar. I don't have a degree in film appreciation or any of these things. I'm just a big fan of film. That's all, and it's just comes from a sincere place, and it's something I really love and I'm passionate about. But when those kinds of situations happen, it really means a lot. And to me, it's the channel isn't really about me. It's about the movies, and because these movies are not only fun uh, as hell and entertaining, especially when it comes to the world of exploitation, just total escapism, like the definition of it. It's uh, you know it's really about bringing certain movies that are not talked about, to the table, because I feel at the end of the day, this channel is just about the movies. And so, if when those situations happen, that, I guess, if you want to call it, that's like kind of my mission statement, is just to bring movies to the table, directors to the table that you know unknown films, underground films. I mean, I cover commercial films too, but when it comes to kind of the core idea of what this channel is, if I can turn someone on to a film that I think is really awesome or worth watching, or at least be open to it, that to me is the whole battle. So I really appreciate that. And as far as like when I talk about my band Quantum, it's all interrelated. I do music shows, music that I really love, and obviously films, and then I give updates about my band Quantum. It's all completely all part of the same fabric. So today's show, I watched this movie again last night, and I did a show on this movie probably about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe last year, 2024, and I had never seen this film before. Bought it on a whim, and I was just like, "This is the cat's meow. This is the shit." And then I watched it again last night, and that is "What Have They Done to Your Daughters?" from directed by Massimo Delmano from 1972. It's an Italian giallo film, and I have to say, I love the genre of giallo films. And again, it's relatively new, I guess. I mean, I saw a lot of giallo films when I was a kid. They were kind of mixed in with a lot of the late night horror shows. Where they would have these movie marathons, and they would show a lot of Italian films. That's how I got turned on to Lucio Fulci and Mario Bava and all of the amazing directors. But they did throw in a lot of giallo films, And I actually have quite a few Giallo films in my collection now, and I've been seeking them out more and more. And I never knew what the term Giallo was back then, but as far as understanding the genre or like what that's about, like why is it? When I was a kid, I just felt like, oh, this is just kind of a slasher movie, but it's actually quite a bit different. It has those elements, but the Giallo art form is such a unique art form. It's completely an Italian style of filmmaking, if you will, and I think so like the last 5 or 6 years, I've come to understand a little bit more about the term Giallo, and then putting two and two together with looking at and discovering some directors, of films that I did see when I was a kid, but putting, kind of completing that sentence. And so now I can, have an idea of like getting my bearings as far as when I want to, when I decided that I really love these films and I wanted to take a deeper dive into this like new term that I had heard, Giallo, which was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And I've covered a lot of Giallo films. Again, I did cover this movie before, but this movie is so damn good that I just think people need to see it. It's so awesome. I think this movie can really appeal to fans of Hitchcock films, and definitely horror films, horror fan films, and people who are into horror films, people who are into slasher films. This movie definitely has like those elements big time. But it's really a pure Giallo film, and the thing that's so cool about Giallo is that it's such a uniquely Italian style. And I've talked about this a lot, but I feel like I can't reiterate it enough of what kind of Giallo is. And it's basically, the Italians um, version of kind of that classic British Agatha Christie murder mystery style or genre. It's the Italians took a really big influence from that those classic British murder mystery stories that kind of predated the emergence of the Giallo film movement, if you will, in Italy. The classic Sherlock Holmes stories and all the murder mystery books that were put out in the beginning, the early 1900s and 30s and 40s and 50s. And these films, really inspired a lot of directors as far as, kind of cultivating a style and also being in the world or the business of exploitation, taking this kind of idea and introducing and putting their own spin to it, introducing some new ideas. Because typically Giallo films, and especially this one, is the centerpiece. I feel like the centerpiece of this film in particular is a murder mystery film. It's essentially a hunt for the gloved killer. And a lot of Giallo films are, the Italians are known for their incredible the incredible way of how they would light films and how they would shoot films. So Giallo films are usually just pop with life, and they have the use of lighting and staging kind of give the films, and especially this one, a kind of heightened reality. Like they are usually set in reality. This film, for instance, what have they done with our daughters is it's loosely based on some true accounts of these crimes that happened where there was a series of these murders in Italy where these schoolgirls were kidnapped and were killed, and there was a serial killer. So that true story kind of inspired this movie. It's not directly, a telling of that story, but they do give that kind of information in the beginning and especially at the end of the film. But typically, it's a murder mystery genre, and in Giallo, you typically always have kind of the gloved killer, like with the leather gloves. You never know who the killer is until maybe the very, very end. There's always a series. There's always the series of different detectives or the police that are involved in this really intensive investigation of who the killer is. Giallo films also tend to be on the very kind of sleazy side. Like there's a lot of copious and kind of sleazy sex. I also feel like Giallo films also have a little bit of a film noir kind of vibe of where everybody, all the characters, even kind of the archetype of the hero, if you will, they got some dirt on them. They're all kind of shady characters. No one's really great. No one's good per se, or no one's inherently all bad. They all have these like, they all got some dirty shit in the background somewhere. And so I feel like that's got that, for my money, I would say that's probably inspired by like the classic kind of noir vibe. And obviously it's a crime drama, which is also another characteristic of Giallo. And I think Hitchcock's films were a big influence also on Giallo films because of the level of suspense, the murder whodunit, the murder mystery, kind of the big reveal of who the killer is. And also, Giallo films are typically known to have some brutal ass kills, and that to me opens it up to people who are into like slasher films, like me, being slashers are my favorite. Um, a lot of Giallo films have copious amounts of gore, so it's like all those things that I kind of described. I'm like, yeah, I'm in it to win it. And again, I have gotten quite a few Giallo films. I've gotten really more, kind of taken that deep dive in the genre, and out of the ones, and I own quite a few of them. One of the directors that I got into big time, and I had seen a couple of his films again when I was a kid, but um, I've just fallen in love with his work. Jess Franco, and Sergio Martino. This movie I bought totally on a whim last year. Blown away by it. I watched it again last night, and I have to say that out of the Giallos that I've seen, and especially the Giallos that I own, God, this movie is the most badass movie. Like, another really amazing trait of Giallo films is that the classic kind of late 60s, 70s soundtrack. A lot of the music is really funky, kind of weird and kind of strange, super raw. The music in this film is just amazing, amazing. I think that it's my favorite musical score for a Giallo film. I would love, I would love to get the soundtrack for this because this movie, yeah, I mean, I think this movie is such a great experience visually, and it's got a wonderful story. It's got so much tension and so much. There's a lot of great action, a lot of great chase sequences. But there's a lot of sequences too where there's just a lot of people talking in rooms, but it's so suspenseful. The killer in this movie is super badass, and the kills are just super awesome. This movie is pretty gory and pretty extreme. Bodies and body parts being hacked away. It's super badass. I love this movie to death. I can't believe that this came out in '72, but I never hear this movie talked about. And out of all of the Giallo films that I have seen, and that I really, I just, it was one of those things I really got into the last few years, and I decided to take a super deep dive into this genre known as Giallo. And I have to say, this is my favorite. This movie is just the epitome of complete badassery. I can't recommend it enough. This Blu-ray for this film is just absolutely gorgeous. And again, I can't believe this came out in '72. I mean, it's so great. It's just totally ahead of its time in its own like weird way. Like really, truly. The other thing that was funny when I put this in. I watched this again last night, and I I'd only this was only my I think This is like my third time seeing this film, and I just love it more and more. But the transfer of this movie is amazing. Tons of special features on here. But what I was starting to talk about was I just finished watching my favorite TV show, and I'm also in the midst of uploading new videos about uh, this show, my favorite television show of all time, True Detective season one. The rest of the seasons for True Detective are not very good. Second season is kind of a shit show. The third season is actually really really good, but I kind of want to watch it again. But the ending, I remember the ending being disappointing and kind of a letdown. But I kind of want to give it a chance because it's actually really really good. And there's a fourth season which I haven't seen, and I heard it's not very good. It's much more of a supernatural kind of based thing from what I've heard. But anyway, that and I just finished watching it, and I've been in the midst of uploading videos about each episode, which I haven't done before. And essentially, that show is about the hunt for a really brutal serial killer and all of the conspiracies around it. But it's brutal, it's super dark, and it's a serial killer film basically or TV show. And it's funny when I popped this in, I started watching it. I kind of grabbed it without even thinking. I threw this in after I finished True Detective, and I'm like, oh wait, this is a movie about a serial killer too. I'm like, man, I'm getting my serial killer thing, getting my serial killer groove on, if you will. But yeah, what have they done to your daughters? 1972, for me, hands down the greatest Giallo film ever made. So I can't recommend this movie enough. This Blu-ray edition is just spectacular. Arrow put this out. Amazing, amazing film. Thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.